Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Association Chat, an online discussion where we warm ourselves by the virtual fire with topics of the day, welcoming thought leaders and trailblazers alike to join up in this online home for the community. I'm the host of Association Chat, KiKi L'Italien. And have you been frustrated with politics lately? I know we're reaching out. It's a little bit, but have you been a little bit frustrated? It doesn't matter what aisle you happen to find yourself sitting on. It seems like everyone has something to be frustrated with. And even if you take your role as a concerned citizen and as a constituent seriously, keeping track of what politicians are voting on and which politician is saying what and what they're commenting on and which way to go on, which way they're going on a huge assortment of bills running through our legislative branch. It's dizzying. It's very difficult. I don't know if you've actually tried to keep up with this or follow this, but if you have, and I have, it's really, really hard. It's not easy. And if you have tried, I just want to ask you, have you found anything that's any more difficult? I mean, I tried to get out of a gym membership in the early 2000s. And so I feel like I'm a pretty resilient human being. And I'm saying that this is one of the hardest things that you can do. Today, we have a guest who is working on making all of this much, much easier and more accessible for everyone. And so today, I'm talking with Patrick Ootz. Yes. Hello. Hello.
Oh, hey, Kiki.
Hey, hey. Did I pronounce your last name correctly?
Yes, you did. Most people say Utz, but it's actually Ootz. So you
Oh,
said it correctly.
did
It's
I
like
get
German.
bonus points? Do I get bonus points for that, maybe?
Yes, in my playbook you do.
Awesome. Well, I'm talking with you today. You have been described as a genius. I don't know you that well, but I feel it. I sense it in your presence. You're a mission-driven CEO. You co-created abstract.us. And abstract, and I'm going to ask you to explain this in a little bit to talk to us a little bit more about the mission and vision and what it does. But here's the description. It's a policy innovation tool that analyzes and tracks bills and allows for real-time collaboration for any organization seeking to improve policy making and decision making. Yes,
Yes,
that's a
yes, yes,
lot.
yes.
So I'm so glad you're here because I mean that's a big thing to try to tackle. And so the first question I have is let's talk about what it is, your mission and vision for this platform. Why does it exist? And what do you hope to achieve with it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think to start off, it might help to provide a little bit of context as to how we started Abstract. And funny enough, it actually did start in the dorm rooms in college. We were having a conversation about the Green New Deal. That
Hmm.
was a bill that was proposed by Congresswoman AOC. I think it was 2018, 2019 when that was first introduced. And long story made short, my friend was saying, "Hey, the congresswoman wants to ban airplanes," and I said, "That sounds very off. I'm not sure about that." So I searched up the bill. I read the entire text. It was a painful process to read and go through. And there was no mention of airlines or banning airlines like they had suggested. So that made me realize, well, I think there's a huge gap here because obviously they had some misinformation. And I mean, let alone that, I had never read a bill before myself. And yet these are the bills that are turned to laws that govern our businesses and our individual lives, right? So, and organizations. So I thought to myself, well, something's wrong here. Why
Hmm.
is it that these bills are so opaque? Why is it that we're not more attuned as to what's going on with the legislative process? And so that made me really kind of go into this long rabbit hole as to learning how the actual legislative process works. And that's where I learned about lobbyists and associations and chambers of commerce and all these other organizations are actually trying to track and influence legislation and realize that that process is very archaic and all over the place. So that was the inspiration for Abstract is taking modern algorithms and technology to streamline the process of understanding all this information and ideally advocating more effectively. And again, that comes from my background as an electrical engineer, which has nothing to do with government, but it's just passion.
Well, but it's a passion, and here you are, and a lot of times when we have problems, the right people step up and they get involved and they find this interest. Now, it started out where you're trying to solve this problem, but there are so many different problems. I don't even know where to begin. So, how did you begin? How did you decide which areas to tackle first? Because it is such a complicated process, and I can imagine there were a lot of different ways that you thought that maybe you could go about doing this thing and helping make it more accessible.
Definitely. So the mission has always been the same, which is kind of cool in my opinion, which is
Yeah.
increasing government transparency, right? That our mission is to increase government transparency and make the process of lobbying more accessible. So that was always the mission from day one. In terms of how we got to where we are now, that's a longer story. We can dive into that, but I would say high level, we initially started off trying to make a Facebook for bills, which just sounds wrong. I know. Uh, Quickly, we realized that people were not, the everyday person was not really interested in just checking out legislation, as
They're
is. So
not?
yeah, I know,
What?
right? um,
Yeah.
and to summarize that information and make it more relevant, take a couple of years of research and development that we're actually working on right now, to make that accessible for the everyday consumer. So instead, we pivoted and we said, okay, what are the organizations that are currently trying to understand and influence legislation that have an emphasis and a need for this? And that's where we came up across the Los Angeles Chamber of Commerce and a couple of trade associations. And so we actually started with them first, before then also working with contract lobbying firms that are also working with legislation on a daily basis. So right now we're mostly just selling and working with nonprofit organizations and private for-profit entities. But the end goal is still to make a app for the everyday consumer
Yeah.
at one point.
Yeah, well, and we have Donna, and hey, Donna, she says transparency is key to empowering community. Thanks for your work. Absolutely, and I think that I've had the good fortune to be able to talk with you just a little bit ahead of time and to look through this tool that you have, this platform that you have that is so useful, and so I part of using this tool, part of how you get this information is you're going and you're scraping the data, and can you explain for those who are not tech savvy,
Definitely.
it can sound painful. I mean, I don't know, how long does it take to heal after you go through this procedure?
Mhm.
No, but the scraping of the data, talk to us a little bit about where you get this, how you bring it in, what it is that you're looking for.
Yeah, so high level how it works. So in California, we're focused in California for now. We'll be expanding soon, but in California, you have about 2 to 5 thousand bills every year,
Mhm.
and those bills are introduced in January, and they go through all these various committees, and politicians have to vote on the bills, and they're consistently changing and being modified until they either die or they turn into law, or rather they go to the governor's desk, governor signs it, and then it turns into a law. So the way high level how it works is, the government uh, uploads this information as PDFs, but PDF documents are very hard to work with. So our technology essentially goes and takes all these PDFs, takes all this information, and scrapes or extracts all that text, does all this processing on the background, and then makes it easier to access that information in our workspace where we have everything in one place. And we actually go beyond just legislation. There's other important information that we provide, like knowing which organizations support or oppose which legislation, knowing the contact information of the legislators. These are all different pieces of data that we've built scrapers for to acquire that information.
Yeah, and I'm jumping over here to give everyone an idea about if you go to the website, you can check out a little bit more about some of the good work that they do and some of the things that they're that they're working on right now. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about a little bit is about the care that you're taking in growing the startup, because obviously we've heard the stories about partnerships or taking on investments where the goal is something different than the original, the founder's mission and goal for the organization. Can you talk to me a little bit about how you're taking care to make sure that you're partnering and working with the people that you want to work with?
Definitely. Yeah. So venture capitalists definitely have a lot of expectations. For reference, we're in our pre-seed stage, so we've raised about $2.5 million since we started, which is kind of crazy. Again, we were in the dorms 2 years ago, so it's one of those crazy roller coaster stories. But with that money comes a lot of responsibility, and specifically that responsibility revolves around growing revenue, right? A venture capital firm, an investor, is not going to invest in your company unless there is some revenue to be made and returns to be made. If not, you would just go after a grant. But then grants are a whole nother conversation.
Oh, I know.
So, with that, we want to make sure we stay aligned with our mission. I think what's going to be really core is, as we expand our product offering, making sure that we don't disadvantage a smaller nonprofit just because they can't pay for the higher tier product. I think how we approach pricing and discounts is going to be really important as we grow. And then beyond pricing, just being aware of the data that we're scraping and putting out there. Luckily, nothing's really politicized with what we do. I mean, we support legislation from all political spectrums. So what's really nice is there is no political sway in anything we build. It's the data, it's the facts. So that's how we think about the ethics as we're scaling.
Now, who are you working with right now as far as organizations, companies that brought you on? What are you seeing as being some particularly great use cases for your platform?
Yeah, so we have a variety of organizations, our current customers, that kind of vary across the spectrum here. So Ceres, CERES, they're a huge sustainability nonprofit. They're using our product to track legislation in the sustainability space and keep tabs on which bills are moving forward in initiatives that they care about, and then sharing that information with their members. The California Psychological Association is another notable customer. They're a trade association, again, focused on psychologists and people in that space. And they're using our product to not only track, but advocate on behalf of their members on those bills. So I think one of the nice things about what we've built is it's not just a tracking tool, it's really an advocacy tool, and that you can take that information and more easily share that with people externally. So I think that storytelling piece is really key, and we're trying to make that storytelling as effective as possible.
Now, I have to give a little bit of history on how I first came to hear about Abstract and about you and about all of the great work that you've been doing, your team's been doing. And that was, I was at the California Society of Association Executives Elevate conference and ended up in a conversation out in the hall, talking with a number of different people from all over the country who had come in for this meeting. And the subject turned to you, the work that you're doing, and some good friends of mine who run Q Career, which is another really great solution and company out there doing great things. They were telling me about the good work that you've been doing. And they were talking about, can you imagine if outside of California and beyond, if associations really looked at this and began to use this platform for all of the lobbying efforts, for all of the different advocacy efforts that we have that we're working on in the association space. And it really got a lot of, let's just say that it kept the discussion going for like another, I'd say a good 15 to 30 minutes, which, when you're competing with, beautiful space outside of a conference hall, says something, right? Everyone was really committed to that conversation. And I think that the people who are listening to this, who are maybe interested for their own nonprofits and associations and figuring out how this can apply to them, where do you see things going? What are you imagining? What's your vision for the future? Because I have scoped out your Twitter. I've scoped out your Twitter feed. I love Twitter because I love to sort of examine little hints and stuff at how people are thinking. And I've seen a couple of tweets where you're like, maybe we're moving, maybe we could move in this direction in the future.
Yeah.
I don't know how serious you were, but like, so what are you thinking about? What's on your mind for the future?
I was like, just ignore my tweets about random occurrences that happen in my life. I like my Twitter's all over the place.
There was one about going up in the gym and like somebody talking to you. Like, I appreciated that one. I actually really like the human side of things. But yeah.
Yes, try not to be as crazy as other people on Twitter. We'll name drop any particular people here. No, try to be real here. So I think, where we see this going, I think we're really embarking on a new kind of era with respect to government and how not only society, like actual citizens interact with government, but organizations, right. Interact with government. And there's a lot of people doing a lot of incredible things in the space, right? I think, at the top of my head, Bloomberg has Bloomberg Government, Fiscal Note, Politico Pro, Quorum. Those are kind of the big players in the space that took a more federal, national approach, and they're catering more towards larger corporations, right? And I think I can again go on about my 2 cents regarding those companies, but where we see ourselves going is really being the one-stop shop to understand how government is going to affect you and how you can be proactive about changing that, right? And ideally that applies at the local, state, and federal level, because all those 3 levels are important in terms of how they affect your life. And we want to be that one-stop shop. So we want to be the one-stop shop that every small business owner can go to and say, hey, I'm a coffee shop owner. I have no idea how any of this works, but let me log into Abstract, see what may impact to the coffee industry, and then connect with other coffee shop owners so that we can support or oppose this legislation. Because, hey, we don't have an association that we're part of. Or associations use Abstract to not only work internally at their organization, but connect with other trade associations, right? Create this network where everyone's talking with one another and advocating more effectively. And I think really the end goal is to, again, make government more transparent, but also more accountable. Because the issue right now is most people don't know what bills their politicians are working on. So if the coffee shop owner actually understood how the bills would impact their business, and the politician that represents their district voted opposite of what they said or wanted, do you think the coffee shop owner is going to vote that politician again? No, they're not. And so the politicians are going to have to be more accountable for their actions and the bills that they're putting forth, and thereby essentially streamlining and kind of revitalizing, in my opinion, the democracy that's has become more opaque and confusing over the past couple of decades.
Well, so one of the other things I scoped out on your Twitter feed, I swear I love Twitter for this reason, was a post that you had made talking about how long it had taken you to go and find out more about candidates on a particular, for, I guess, maybe for a local primary or something that you were voting in. And I think you said it was something like 1.5 hours or something. And, you still weren't sure that you had all the information you needed. Have you been, I mean, obviously you're paying more attention to all of the times that you're running into barriers to get the information that you need because of what you do. But I don't know, has each time that you do this, are you discovering new elements that you're thinking of adding into what
Mm-hmm.
abstract does? Because I have to say that even in my little town of Winona, New Jersey, which shout out to Winona, I love you, suburb of Philly, but really its own special place. To get that information, it even became a topic of discussion in town. How easy is it to get information? And I think a lot of people really struggle with this. So,
Yeah.
yeah, the question
Yeah.
is like, are you uncovering new things when you're going about your own experience as a constituent where you're bringing that stuff in?
Definitely. I mean, that's a great example. We're focused on legislation and bills right now, but I had that very frustrating experience when we had to vote about a month ago, where I had no idea who any of these candidates were. I had no idea what the track record was like for the current elected officials. And therefore, I was not able to make an educated choice about who to vote or not vote for. And so, again, this idea of streamlining how we gather information that's accurate and actionable, I think can also apply to campaigns and voting, right? So I think it'd be cool to have a abstract for voting,
Yeah,
abstract
yeah.
for candidates. Yeah, I have a couple of thoughts around that that we can dive into at some other time, but that's definitely an example of where I think there's just a lot of shortcomings.
Oh, yeah. One of the someone, Rebecca A. Church in the community, and shout out to Rebecca A. Church. She's a consultant who is very active, has her own consultancy, but also is part of the Association Women Technology. It's AWTC,
Mm-hmm.
Technology Champions or something like that. Everyone should check it out. If you're in the association space and you're not aware, go look for it, AWTC. But she was in that group talking specifically about, after hearing about abstract and the work that you're doing. And she said, can you imagine, boards working on governance together and being able to track who had commented on what and what the history was behind it, and really thinking about using that for talk about hyper local. I mean, within the association, that particular the
Mm.
governance within the association. And
Yes.
as you're like, I'm familiar with this, yes, we've
I know where you're
discussed.
going with this. Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. So she was talking about that even, and the need for a tool that works and can be applied in that granular fashion when it's so difficult to see that history, see who's taken away from and added to, and how they've been connected to other similar types of, not legislation, but documents and decisions in the past. And I mean, have you thought about that? Have you thought about looking in that direction? I'm sure.
Yeah, this is fun. I mean, this is the second time this has come up now. Even though I think this is a very unique
Mhm.
application of this that hasn't been done before. But yeah, I mean, right now our platform, right, is focused on legislation, on government, the government of the United States, California, city, whatever, right, local, state, federal level. But that's not the only governing body, right? There's governance structures in schools, right? You have the boards at schools. Every corporation that's public needs to have a board of directors. All these associations have boards. So whenever they're making rules, whenever they're having meetings, I totally see a future where abstract can help streamline the process of keeping all those documents in one place, the process of making that more accessible by the members of that organization,
Mhm.
and streamlining the feedback loop in terms of, hey, we want to get this measure passed. How can we how can we do that in a very organized and effective manner? So yeah, I think abstract can definitely scale to governing structures beyond just our government.
All right. So I have a unique question that I wanted to end on. I mean, I'm not going to end there. I'm going to ask you a question like, what should I have asked that I didn't, and that sort of thing. So heads up, that's coming your way. But before I did that, I wanted to ask you, and it's a hypothetical, from what you know about associations, and for everyone out there. I mean, I have to apologize to Patrick because I didn't give him a heads up about this question. This is coming to him fresh. He's not expecting it. If you were stranded on a desert island, which kind of association executive would you like to call to help you get off the island? And you only have one choice. I'm going to give you what the choices are. You can't choose anything that's not part of the list. You can only select one, but you can only make one call. So this is your choice, and I'm gonna move. Let's switch you over here so people don't have to look at me. I know. So these are your choices: executive director, government relations director, chief learning officer, marketing director, or membership director.
So I'm on a stranded island.
You're on a stranded island. And I mean, this is survival. This is not sucking up to the right person. This is truly, if you're going to live or die, if somebody is going to, I mean, this is assuming you want to get off the island, right? But like, assuming you want to get off the island, which of these choices would you choose?
This is it might be a stupid answer, but so government relations director is someone I would definitely want to talk to about, what we're doing with abstract. But if I'm on an island,
this is the island.
I want to get out. Yeah, I want to get out of there as quickly as possible.
Yes.
So to get out of there as quickly as possible, I need to, make noise, make ourselves aware. So maybe the marketing director, since they know how to be flashy and get the word out. So we're on an island, so they might help me make some interesting smoke signals. They might have a little more creative mind in terms of how we can make a nice signal to get rescued. So yeah, I would go with the marketing director.
You've made a lot of marketing directors feel validated in their choice of career right now, and I just want to applaud you for that. I also want to say there are a lot of people who are saying you'd be dead, you'd be dying now on your strength. No, I'm just kidding. It was nice knowing you, Patrick. No, but no, I think that's a really great. I love hearing people's responses to questions like that, to just see, how are you piecing through and what do you think about it? But yeah, building the buzz, maybe get a good campaign around it. Let's save Patrick. That would be ideal.
Get out of the island. I want to get out of there.
Yeah. So, okay. So I know this has been fast and furious, but I want to find out, what is it that we haven't talked about that you think is key for people to know? What did we not discuss that you think, if there's one thing that they take away from this that they really hold on to or need to know about, what would that be?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's very easy to just embrace a very pessimistic mindset in terms of where we're at as a country right now. It doesn't matter your political background or leaning, but I think, as a whole, citizens have had like a almost record low, stamina / optimistic score, and in the recent past couple of years. So I think it's easy to be very pessimistic looking at everything going around us, but I do want to instill some optimism in people's hearts and say, like, I think this is the right time to continue innovating, to be vocal, to advocate, because that's the only way to progress and move onwards and upwards, right? If not, we fall into wars and
Languish. Yeah, right.
yeah,
We stay we end
yeah,
up
either
on
we
the
do
desert
nothing or
island forever.
yeah,
Right.
we stay on the island or we have a war, right? So I
Right.
think yeah, I have a lot of faith in terms of the next couple of decades that we're going to face here in this country on like various fronts. And I think in terms of our government itself, I really think that we are going to see a golden age coming upon us in terms of being able to be more educated in terms of what's actually going on and being able to actually voice out our concerns and have an impact on what our government is doing across all fronts. So as scary as many things may seem now, I really think we're on a much greater path moving forward, um, and yeah, just kind of end it on a positive note like that.
Like that. Positive is good. We can do positive. I mean, it's right now as we're recording this for anyone who's listening to it later. It's a Tuesday. It's the beginning of the week. Positive is good. I want to hold on to that. And I also want to hold on to it as we're moving into the month of July, which is going to be coming up very soon, celebrating Independence Day. And all of
Hmm.
us wondering just how independent are we and should we be and what's
Yeah,
how can we look at that and maybe reclaim some of that? I don't know.
yeah.
So I want to say thank you so much for talking with the group. Donna says, love your outlook. A golden age is coming of information. Yeah, let's hope so, right? I mean, with solutions like this, with people working on it like this, I have to believe that there are so many people who are becoming, even if they start out as engineers. No, I'm just kidding. As I start, but become passionate about
Mhm.
these things that can help change the world, change our country, change all of our lives. And so thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. I love the good work that you're doing, and I hope you keep doing it. And I look forward to hearing more and more about what happens for you and for Abstract and for your entire team that's out there just doing great work and continuing to grow. And if people want to reach out to you, what's the best
Mhm.
way? I see if they're watching, you have your email address up there, but if they're listening, what's the best way to reach out?
Yeah, so my email, you can connect with me on LinkedIn, or you can just email me. It's P-A-T, at abstract.us, abstract.us. But yeah, very, very open to chatting with anyone who's interested in learning more about what we're doing with our current product, but also just chatting in general about what we've learned so far and where we see things going. But thank you again for having me on the show, KiKi.
I love it. Thank you for being here. And I can't wait. When you have an update, you'll have to come back on and share with everyone what's happening. I want to hear about, when it expands into some new territories as it's
Oh yeah,
growing, all of
yeah,
that stuff. So we'll
yeah.
keep on top of that and stay in touch.
Awesome, we'll do.
All right. So, what did you think? Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I'm jumping into my microphone. What did you think about this? That's the show for today. I was so excited to meet Patrick, to hear about the great work that he and everyone else at Abstract is doing, and to see that there's promise, there's hope, there is growth moving into a direction where we have greater transparency, where we understand a little bit more about the laws, how they're created, and the policies that are helping to shape the world that we live in. So, for all of you out there today, I hope you learned something that will help your life, that will inspire you in your work. And until next time, everyone, keep striving and asking questions to learn every day. Because as Joseph Campbell once said, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. Have a great rest of the week, everyone.